Pancreatitis. Maybe your dog has had it. Maybe a previous dog has had it. Maybe a family member or friend's dog has had it. Maybe you work in the industry and you have seen dogs with pancreatitis. I want to talk about it in a non-traditional angle point, in a non-traditional viewpoint. I know that that's got to surprise you, right? If this is the first time you're watching this YouTube or listening to this podcast, I'm Dr. Bamonte. I've been a veterinarian for over 11 years, and I really embody, align, and take pride in taking a non-traditional approach, having non-traditional conversations so that your pet can live better, so they can hopefully live longer. We're kind of like rethinking pet care over here on this side of the world. And when it comes to pancreatitis, it can be a scary diagnosis. It can be a painful diagnosis. It can be one that sometimes leaves your dog having diarrhea, vomiting. Maybe they've been hospitalized. And so I want to be able to bring this approach to you so that you can maybe have a different lens. And what I'm not saying is to abandon everything that you have done in the past, but I hope to open your mind to some considerations. And so the pancreas is an organ that we also have. It is this tiny, sensitive little organ that lives near the stomach and the small intestine, and it helps your dog and us digest. It helps break down fat, protein, carbs, and it helps release insulin so that our glucose can be stabilized. And so it's a very important and delicate organ. In fact, many of us who also perform surgery joke, like when you open a pet up, don't even look at the pancreas because it is so delicate and just very particular. And so when a dog gets pancreatitis, and cats, because cats can get it too, it means it is inflamed, hence the itis with pancreatitis. And so those enzymes that help support digestion sometimes leak and they irritate the pancreas itself. And the pancreas, being very delicate and very intricate, kind of like puts a hold up. It's like, hold on a minute, you just insulted me and I need you to know about it. It can cause pain, it can cause nausea, it can cause vomiting, it can cause upset stomach, which is often why, but not always, dogs who experience or cats who experience pancreatitis don't want to eat. They don't feel great. In fact, that is usually one of the most common presenting complaints that cat owners will say is, my cat just isn't eating. They aren't feeling well. And that's when it's like, okay, could this be pancreatitis? And as you may know, it's not always a one-time event. It doesn't mean because your pet got it and got over it that it may not happen ever again, or another dog, or later in life. Some dogs have mild chronic flare-ups. Some dogs have a one and done where it is really big, and you may have thought at one point, am I going to lose my dog over this? And so the classic story goes that I see in clinical practice, or I'm hearing a lot on my nutrition consults, is my dog ate something fatty and it got pancreatitis. My dog ate X, Y, and Z and she had pancreatitis and was hospitalized. My dog ate X, Y, and Z and he experienced pancreatitis and I don't ever want to go through it again. I understand. My dog actually had a brief bout of pancreatitis earlier this year, earlier in 2025, and I wasn't necessarily worried. It was just poor timing. And A, not that I ever want my dog to experience anything, whether the timing is good or not. But of course, because of Murphy's Law, it happened literally right before I was leaving town for a vacation that I was so excited for. And so it's something that I commonly see in practice. It is sometimes I also think a blanket diagnosis when we don't really know what's going on. And I look at it as like an umbrella diagnosis that there's a lot of things that can also cause it. It's not always just one thing. And that's what I want to talk to you about. And so it gets very interesting when there is a very high fat, greasy, poor quality foods or poor quality ingredients that trigger a flare up. Absolutely. Especially in a dog that already has liver issues or gut issues or immune system issues. But for many dogs, that piece of bacon wasn't the real problem. This is something that's been brewing. This is something that your dog's digestion has kind of been trained as a hurdle. And so most dogs today, but I'm not saying is every dog, but most dogs today are eating very traditional food, very traditional canned food, very traditional kibble food. Now, I will say, now that I've been practicing for 11 years, I've seen the switch. I've seen the transition of people wanting to include fresh food into their dog's kibble, or getting away from kibble and feeding commercial fresh food, or cooking for their dog. Sometimes not always balanced, but the intention is there. Or they're doing a mixture. I often hear of dogs eating canned food or kibble food, and then the owners are also cooking. For some reason, it's very popular. Chicken, rice, green beans, yogurt, and carrots sometimes, or sweet potato. So that intention is there, but like, I want to make it better, but I don't quite know how. And so a lot of these dogs who are eating the traditional kibbles, especially for majority of their nutrition, That is 40 to 60% of carbohydrates sometimes. That's starches. And so that's because that starch needs to hold the kibble together to get through the machine to form the actual kibble. And so over time, there are some things that happen. It teaches your dog's pancreas to focus on producing insulin to help manage all those carbohydrates instead of sometimes digestive enzymes to help with the protein and fat. And so what I'm not saying is that they're not having digestive enzymes. What I am saying is that they are relying even more on insulin because of the nature of the macronutrients in their food. Macronutrients being carbohydrates, fiber, fat, protein. And so as a side effect of this, it can lead to some blood sugar spikes and inflammation, not to the point where you're like, my dog's a diabetic, but to the point where it is causing microinflammations because every time glucose spikes, we have a little bit of inflammation, which can put stress on your dog's pancreas. It can thus then affect their gut microbiome. And that plays a huge role in digestion and inflammation being regulated. In fact, did you know that certain bacteria in your dog's gut are responsible for digesting certain ingredients, certain types of protein, certain types of fat, certain types of carbohydrates? Pretty cool, right? It's not just like bacteria were thrown into your dog's gut just to like call it a day. Each bacteria has its own role. Think of a community. Think of a city and all the city workers. They each have their role. Think of your job. Everyone has a role. Think of flying an airplane. The flight attendants, the captain, the co-captain. I mean, everybody, the passengers, everybody has a role. And so that gut microbiome can also be altered because of inflammation, because of what is being fed. Certain bacteria can sometimes be starved because they're not getting what they need, especially if a majority of the nutrition being offered is very carb rich and very processed. So that same pup who suddenly gets a higher fat, more natural food, their pancreas isn't broken. It's out of practice. It hasn't been working the way it's been designed to for years or maybe their whole life. And so the body reacts strongly, puts up its stop sign, and it looks like the fat is the trigger when really it was the metabolic process, the mismatch in the type of food that we're giving them. I use this analogy a lot on my nutrition consults. And if we've had one and we've talked about this, maybe you've heard this analogy before. Think of the Super Bowl. Those football players have been playing all season long, right? That's how they got to the Super Bowl. What it doesn't mean is that they're not going to stretch before the Super Bowl. Just because they've been playing all season and just because they are one of the two top teams does not mean that those players don't need to stretch in order to prevent an injury, in order to allow them to be their best. They still have to stretch. And the same thing comes with your dog, even though they've been eating food for their whole life, whether that is 2 years, 6 years, 10 years, 12 years, 6 months, whatever it is, you still have to warm up their digestion that things are going to be different. Things are going to be required differently for them, just like it is for those football players for the Super Bowl. Things are different for them. This is like the Super Bowl. And so the same thing goes for your dog's digestion. Just because maybe you've been doing some toppers of fresh food toppers doesn't mean that they don't need a slow transition to help warm up their digestion that, hey, things are going to be different. We're going to require different bacteria to help digest. We're going to require a different process of digestion. We have different ingredients. And so pancreatitis rarely, I don't like absolutes, but rarely happens in isolation. It can. It absolutely can. There are often other pieces to the puzzle that don't get talked about enough. And this is why I want to bring this non-traditional approach to you, this non-traditional viewpoint, this non-traditional conversation about pancreatitis. Let's talk about liver congestion. So when your pet's liver is overloaded with toxins, think ultra-processed food, think environmental chemicals, think medications, think seed oils, think ingredients, think over-vaccinating, think medication, medication, medication. It can't process things like fat properly. And that backup puts more stress on the pancreas and the intestinal tract, which thus can put a strain on their immune system, which can thus show up in a variety of ways like hello allergies, hello inflammatory bowel disease. When there's a gut imbalance, when there's poor microbiome, when that health of the microbiome is affected, again, the digestion is affected, there can be inflammation. When that gut lining is irritated or impacted, the pancreas has to work harder to compensate for it. That pancreas, although small, be mighty. And so chronic inflammation from sensitivities, poor diet, stress, nervous system regulation. It's silent background noise that keeps the audio going, essentially, for that flare up to just wait for the perfect moment. So again, it seems like it's isolated, but in reality, if some of these check boxes are checked for your dog on ultra processed food, over vaccinating, over medicating, nervous system regulation, chemical exposure that is too much, maybe from lawn care, chemicals in the household where you walk them. It is allowing all this to build up in the background. And then it's just that straw that breaks the camel's back. That seems like isolation, but this whole time the straws have been piling on. So it's rarely, although possible, about one bad meal. It's possible. Anything is possible. But it's about a system that's under pressure for a long time, a system that is working in the way that it really wasn't designed to, but can, but hasn't been designed to. So I want to be clear, though, that fat quality and context matter. Absolutely. Fats from fast food or rancid treats, food that is left out and open to get rancid, or table scraps that aren't healthy are not the same thing as healthy fats from a clean, balanced, intentional diet for your dog, such as like a source of omega-3s, source of clean protein, lean protein. And I would invite you right now, if you're like, oh my gosh, this is my dog. How do I do this? Because I want to feed my dog a less processed food. How do I do that? I want to invite you to schedule your one-on-one nutrition consultation. This is exactly what we talk about. You talk about your dog past, but here's the best part. The 40 minutes that we meet virtually, one-on-one, it's not just a history session. Yeah, we take that into account because that's important to go forward. We strategize. We look at what are ingredients maybe you want to consider, avoid. Specialized tests. Do we want to test that gut microbiome and see where it's at? Do we want to test them for the heavy metals? Do we want to test them for things that could be congesting the liver? These are all things that we talk about so that you can have peace of mind knowing that you're feeding your dog as good as possible and hopefully keeping those flare-ups at bay. In fact, I have met with several pet owners who have fed commercial fresh foods, and maybe it was the fresh foods. Maybe that fresh food was not a fit for the dog, and maybe it wasn't the fat content and the lower carb. Maybe it was an ingredient in it. They have a sensitivity or an allergy. But when I hear a dog eating a food like that, and then developing pancreatitis 4 months later, and then having in there another flare-up when this is all this dog is eating, months later, I don't know if it's the diet. I'm like, I have to think that there's something else going on and that the diet's getting blamed. Is it possible? Yes, but on that frequency, I'm not quite sure. And these are all topics that we cover in a one-on-one nutrition consultation. If your dog currently has pancreatitis or severe liver disease, maybe they need low fat temporarily for a period of time to transition them. But once things are calmed down, once things are healed, once there are answers and we can support the liver, we can support the immune system, we can support the gut, most dogs actually thrive on an appropriate biologically balanced diet that is lower to no carbs, higher fat, and higher protein. So it's not about removing the fat. It's about rebalancing it so that it is appropriate for them. So they're using the appropriate macronutrients. And be mindful again, where does it come from? Again, carbs aren't bad, although your dog doesn't really need carbs. But how are they being given to them? Is it white rice or is it vegetables? Is it quinoa or is it pasta? Are we looking at starchy, refined carbs versus not? Those are all important things. Again, these are topics and things that go into a nutrition consultation. And recipe formulation is separate at this time from a nutrition consultation. And these are all factors that go into formulating recipes for your dog so they can be set up for success. And so when I see dogs that are prone to pancreatitis, whether in practice or owners stating that they are, my focus is never just lower fat, ever. It is how can we support the liver with clean food that is as least processed as possible. Hydration, maybe supplements to help liver support. Maybe it's testing. Again, do we have liver congestion? Can we heal the gut with gentle fibers, Whole fresh foods, again, less processed. Do we test the gut microbiome? Yes, we transition slowly. We let the pancreas remember what it's supposed to do. We allow it to warm up. We allow it to stretch, to digest real food again, to do what it's designed to do. Using quality fats, clean animal fats and omegas, not seed oils, not mystery byproducts, not fats that maybe your pet is allergic to. Because once their foundation, their nutrition is so strong, a lot of dogs can tolerate it and actually thrive on these diets, thrive with this nutrition. So if your dog has ever had pancreatitis and you've been told no more fat or lower fat, I want you to pause. I want you to ask, was this about one fatty treat or one fatty meal? Or is this a system that is trying to signal to me that it is off? It is imbalanced. Maybe it's kind of broken. Because the truth is, fat is not the enemy. It is the quality of the fat. It is the state of fat. It is the state of your pet's body and how it can handle it. Because when we support their gut, their liver, their inflammation, their microbiome, we can stop relying on these carb-heavy, ultra-processed diets. And we can set them up for success and give the pancreas what it's been missing. Balance, not restriction. Giving it what it's designed to do. If this episode helps you really, really think kind of what is behind pancreatitis, share this with a pet parent. Share it with someone who's been scared to maybe switch their dog's food. And if that is you, again, I want to invite you to schedule your one-on-one nutrition consultation. We talk about your pet. And what we don't do is make them fit in a box because we don't do cookie cutter around here. What we do is personalize. It's intentional. Because sometimes fat isn't the problem, it's the foundation. And I really think it's important to help your pet live better so that they can live longer.